Hi, I'm Katie, and I'll be doing my presentation on supporting a circular economy through the use of municipal wastewater. So, what is a circular economy? Historically, we have followed more of a linear economy model. So, if you look at the top, it's that first line, where we extract raw materials, we design and manufacture our desired product, send it to the consumer, and after we are finished with the consumption of the product, however long that takes, the final disposal often into landfills. A circular economy is really just trying to close that loop, looking at the waste products and taking as much of that as we can to get desired products that we can then reuse and put back into this loop life cycle. So I want to first give a brief overview of the municipal wastewater treatment process. Municipal wastewater is the water from our toilets, from street runoff, things of that nature. And essentially, we take that water and we want to separate out the bad, undesired products. And then we want to end up with clean water that is environmentally safe and friendly that we can discharge into surface waters or wherever that particular plant discharges to. Now, in that process, that waste that we end up with, that we have taken out of the water and separated, is called sludge, waste activated sludge on this chart specifically. And that is very microbially dense. There is a huge or high biodiversity. And this is used for its biomass to then produce energy, biofuel, oil, all that. So if we look at the diagram, the little flow chart, all the way to the left, we see there's wastewater influent. And first step is preliminary treatment. I know there says there's primary sludge. That's not the sludge I'm talking about. We're going to ignore that. But preliminary treatment essentially is you're getting out the larger objects. So this can be anything from sediment to flushable wipes. Fun fact, flushable wipes are not flushable. They're very bad for the wastewater treatment system. It causes a lot of issues. So I would highly recommend to not flush those. That being said, after these larger things are removed just in physical processes such as stirring it essentially, and then gravity will settle those larger objects in sediment, that water on top will then go to secondary treatment. And this is where on the right half we see that there's first an aeration tank. So this is where the biological processes start happening with oxygen present. Oxygen actually has to be pumped into the water to increase the dissolved oxygen for the biological demand in the water. So a lot of energy is used on that, and after that it will then go to another tank, and anaerobic processes will happen, again removing or converting undesirable compounds in the water to something more desirable. Whatever the meaning of desirable means, there's many different ones. But after that, we get our waste product of sludge. And historically, we've put that sludge into landfills. And this is recently starting to be used, as I said, for its biomass. So I won't go over this entire chart, but pretty much this just shows the different routes you can take with sludge reuse. I wanted to show how expansive it is, and there is a lot of research being done on how to do this and make it more efficient as we talk about green energy. I highlighted in the red boxes kind of the ones I want to touch on. So anaerobic digestion, microbial fuel cells, and then the pyrolysis and gasification. So I just want to touch on some of the important properties of wastewater and sludge to keep in mind. First, sludge is extremely high in water content. So it's usually above 90%. And this just matters because if you're looking at production, you oftentimes need to dry it before proceeding to the next step. There's also seasonal variations. We've seen this in other utilities. It's very common. It can affect the wastewater influent flow rate, the temperature, of course, pH, dissolved oxygen, and in turn the microbial diversity of the sludge. In the summer, we're gonna spend more money and energy on aerating tanks because there's less dissolved oxygen in the water. And in the winter, most energy is going to be spent on heating the water. This is 80%, the aeration and heating is 80% of energy costs for wastewater treatment plants. So this is a very important thing to focus on. It's also location dependent, so the microbial diversity is going to change based seasonally on the the gut microbiome and what humans are shedding in their feces depending on the season, as well as what you were just environmentally exposed to, where you live, what city, what the regulations are, and all that. Also, there are a wide range of pollutants in the water. This is a much broader topic as to how much concern it is in regulation and research, but it is something to keep in mind that we do need to pay attention to that because sludge can concentrate those pollutants. So I want to first go over the microbial fuel cell technology. Fuel cells take chemical energy and convert it to electricity, and they do not need combustion reactions in the process. They use a semi-permeable membrane for the flow of ions between the anode chamber and the cathode chamber. So if you look over at this diagram on the right of what it looks like, you'll see to the left is the anode chamber. This is where the sludge would be and all the microbes. And to the right is the cathode chamber. So essentially in the anode chamber, you're going to have anaerobic conditions, and these bacteria can form a what's called a biofilm. So if you look at the picture, that dark gray kind of rod is the anode, and those bacteria grow all around it and create a biofilm where they can break down organic matter in this solution, and they can release electrons. The higher the surface area on the anode, the better, because you can have more bacteria absorbed to the anode. The cathode is about 50% of the production cost, and what material you use is important. And it's usually the rate limiting due to the oxygen reduction reaction. So in regards to electricity production, as I've said before, the microbial population is highly variable in sludge, and microbial fuel cells are their efficiency is highly variable based on the microbial composition in the fuel cell. With that being said, there's something called exoelectrogenic bacteria. So apart from wanting a richly diverse microbial population, we also are looking for exoelectrogenic bacteria. There are certain genera or species of bacteria that can actually have something called nanowires, which kind of look like pili coming out of the cells, and they can connect this. They can go from the cell to the anode and actually increase energy production. And again, this is greatly influenced by the type of inoculum used, so depending on where you get your sludge from. Low operating costs, but high capital costs, very common in renewable energy, and the scaling up has been proven to be difficult. It could be more realistic to use this product in to charge cell phones in remote areas. It's also being used and looked at for reverse osmosis, being a precursor to this. And reverse osmosis is just using the desalination process of water. So next I want to talk about syngas. So syngas can be produced from coal. It can also be produced from biomass. So if you look at this little diagram to the right, you can see you start off with biomass, it goes into the reactor, and through the process of pyrolysis, you can produce syngas, biochar, bio-oil. Biochar is the predominant product in slow or conventional pyrolysis, which can last minutes to hours. There's also fast pyrolysis, which lasts seconds to minutes, also at a high temperature. That mostly produces bio-oil. Syngas, to produce that, we will need to look at something called gasification, which we'll look at in the next slide. But one cool thing about going this route, is there is evidence to show that PFAS are removed from the end product in this process of pyrolysis. And just with the awareness of PFAS coming into awareness now, that might be something to note. So in syngas, you go through a process called gasification, which is, as we see, the incomplete combustion of raw material using an oxidizing agent. The products of syngas are predominantly carbon monoxide and H2. There are other trace elements that will need to be purified. And so you can see, again, on this diagram to the right, all the different ways that you can use municipal waste, go through the process of gasification, gas treating, and the different ways in which you can use it, such as fuel or power generation. So in biogas production via anaerobic digestion, this is the process of taking sludge and putting it into a reactor where microbial processes are going to occur. It's going to be a multi-step depolymerization process. The predominant gas produced is going to be methane in the process of methanogenesis, but there are going to be other byproducts such as CO2 and other trace gases. This can be used as an alternative to natural gas as an end product, but it only has about half the energy content of natural gas. And using this can cover about half of the electricity cost of a wastewater treatment plant. So depending on what you want to use the biogas for, it may need to go through upgrading, which is just taking that mixture that you have of gases, that is predominantly methane, but has those other trace gases and contaminants, and purifying it. There's different ways in which you can do this, such as amine scrubbing. I'm not going to go into all the different processes right now, but through purifying the gas, it can increase its versatility and its value. And that methane can be used in electricity production for the wastewater treatment plants. If it ever got to the point where it was, efficient enough where excess energy was being produced, it would be able to be externally distributed. Biogas would be a widely available resource when using sludge due to the fact that wastewater treatment plants are pretty much everywhere. Most of the US is on municipal wastewater. Of course, there are not everybody, but the majority. And as well as this process is preferable in larger plants and more densely populated areas. This is really nice just because a lot of renewable energies, some of the struggles are the process of scaling up. And so the fact that this already works on a large scale is very advantageous. So next, I just wanted to show this picture. It's called a flame test. So pretty much they burn the different gases. So we have biogas, syngas, methane. And if you look at where it's circled, if you look at the syngas, you can see that stable blue flame compared to the other two. It implies actual complete combustion. So some of the limitations of sludge reuse include the quality and quantity are seasonally dependent, as previously mentioned. Depending on what route you take, it can matter less. But in things such as the microbial fuel cells, the microbial composition is very important, and it can be more sensitive to that. As with most renewable energy sources, the efficiency is generally lower with higher initial costs. This is, again, pretty common, but it's always something to keep in mind. Common pollutant and contaminants in wastewater may or may not be removed from the end product. So we talked about in pyrolysis, how it looks like PFAS are removed from the end product. But the contaminants that are taken out of the wastewater are oftentimes concentrated in the sludge. Now, there's different ways that we can look at removing these, pre-treatment and before production, of course. But it just may increase cost, and we'll also have to look at the human health impacts, regulations on what the limits of different contaminants and pollutants in the wastewater or just in the environment in general are constantly changing. And that is just something to keep in mind. As well as many studies on biomass for fuel production focus on agricultural waste as sources versus municipal wastewater treatment waste. So the data trends may not translate to sludge use exactly. So just that's something to keep in mind with looking into some of the research that has been done. There should maybe be some more data on specifically wastewater sludge.